You know, I have friends who haven't worked in 5 years. I know families who survive on food stamps. We need work. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and one on the way. And they're gonna have jobs when they get older, right here in Pennsylvania.
If Corey O'Brien can bring back trust by instituting a code of ethics his first day as county commissioner and balance the budget without raising taxes or cutting services, he can bring back jobs and hope as congressman.
I'm Corey O'Brien, and I approve this ad.
I thought we would start with the stimulus package, as we are filming. I believe it's the 1-year anniversary of when the law was passed and signed by President Obama. What do you think will be the political legacy of that law as we go into the 2010 elections?
Well, I think we ought to focus less on political legacies than we do on the impact, legacy for working people in Pennsylvania of policies like the stimulus package. You know, I think the average citizen, Republican, Democrat, Independent, is kind of tired of politicians worrying about who wins or loses on election day, and not focusing on getting the job done, getting the mission accomplished. And the mission of the stimulus package was to stabilize an economy that was in free fall. And I think that the fact is that if that stimulus package helped to prevent the layoff of firefighters, helped to prevent the layoff of teachers, helped save jobs and prevent us from sinking into what everybody was describing as a depression, then I think that it was a good thing. And I'm glad that our government did it because it's prevented what could have been even more suffering by citizens in our country and our state.
What kind of dynamic do you think the stimulus will create when you're on the campaign trail?
I think it is one that people are concerned about, and I think it goes to, let's take a step back. Businesses right now are not hiring. Okay, we all agree with that. I think the challenge is we misunderstand why they're not hiring. There's so many uncertainties out there, and at the top of that list is clearly the fact that our current model for government is not going to work. Meaning the amount we're borrowing, or the amount we're paying, and the amount that's being centralized in Washington doesn't work. And businesses are fluid right now. Entrepreneurs are fluid. They can go anywhere to start businesses. And multinationals can set up businesses anywhere they want in the world. And we've created a system of government where it's clear that we can't pay our bills. And the only path forward at a certain point under the current path is to have taxes be much higher. And I think this is why the stimulus package is going to long-term certainly have a counter effect to job creation, which is it's creating an environment where businesses are not going to invest in the United States.
David, there are people like Brian who have the luxury of not having to had a vote on the package, but there's a whole host of incumbents who had to vote for or against the package. How do you think that incumbents in your party should be handling the issue out on the campaign trail?
Thanks, Dan. Well, initially, I think we have to say is when you're talking about incumbents in both the Republican and the Democratic Party, it depends on where you are. I mean, Congress, I know we like, and there may be a national election at some point. There was in the past, but Congress really is very, very local. And looking at Philadelphia, I doubt that there would be very much impact on the election of Congressman Brady or Congresswoman Schwartz or Congressman Fattah because they voted for this bill. In the suburbs, it may be a different story, but let me just say, politically as well, I believe, and I can speak specifically about what I have seen in Philadelphia. Without the stimulus package, the L stop at Girard Avenue, not too far from where we're sitting, would not be getting renovated today, and there wouldn't be X amount of jobs. I believe there's somewhere in excess of 50 or 70 construction jobs alone, coupled with those folks at SEPTA who are still working there because they have that, that station is being renovated. There was $26 million recently from the ARRA, the stimulus fund, sent to Philadelphia Airport. And that created 50 jobs because they are now in phase 3 of the expansion of terminals D and E. So, I mean, I understand that there really can be differences in what folks think of the long term here. I really do, however, think that this is very much like what took place, and again, I hate to look at the past and say this is the future, but in a sense it is. We really have had a terrible problem in 1932. And there were short-term stimulus packages that actually put folks to work in that short term, and don't know really whether in the long term what that legacy was. There might have been some long-term jobs. I think it's too early to say, quite frankly, what the long-term legacy of the stimulus package will be. In the short term, I think it was essential to keep folks to work, and again, I use those specifics that I just talked about.
So you think borrowing money from foreign governments that will have to be paid back? Do we all agree that at some point you have to pay back borrowed money? I mean, we agree with that principle. So borrowing it in the short term and forcing ourselves to pay it back in the long term in a process that will destroy our children's standard of living. I mean, it will. There's no path forward here to paying back these massive debts that we're compiling. By the way, I don't think this is a Democratic or Republican issue at all. I will be the first to admit, both parties have failed when they've been in Washington. From 2002 to 2010, we've seen the national debt triple, absolutely triple. And that model is unsustainable. Even the president will admit it. The problem is nobody seems to have the political courage to face these things head on.
Well, hold on a second. This will lead into the subject of what's the balance between working to create jobs and working to bring down the deficit.
Well, when I was in the paratroopers, we had a saying, mission first, men always. There's always that debate, which is first, your troops or the mission? And we said mission first, men always. And addressing this issue, it should be jobs first, deficit reduction always. But let me just say that it's really ludicrous to say that this stimulus package is the deficit. This stimulus package is a fraction of the deficit. The deficit...
It's 1/12.
The deficit, well, that's a fraction, I believe.
Well, half is a fraction too by that definition, Brian.
I didn't major in math, but it's also a fraction. But the point is that it's a fraction of the deficit. The deficit, no question, you're right, it takes political courage. And dealing with the deficit would be in part dealing with jobs. You would get jobs created if, as Steve says, there was more certainty about our future. Well, we had an opportunity the other day in the United States Senate to pass a fiscal commission to do for the country what the legislators are unwilling to do for themselves. To say, here's a commission that will give us solutions to the long-term deficit. Much of the deficit, by the way, has to do with healthcare, the out-of-control cost of healthcare. And this commission, which would have proposed solutions, look, their solutions are out there. Everybody knows what the solutions to Social Security and Medicare and debt is, but they're not willing to step up and vote for it. Well, here they had an easy chance to give it to a third party to say, you guys come up with the solutions, and all we have to do is vote yes or no, and they rejected that because they want to play politics with
what's the right balance on this politically? Do you think, Nathan?
I think the right balance is that you've got to be able to fluently talk to voters about both jobs and the deficit. The deficit as of today stood at $46.6 billion. And as Steve, I think, said, that's the healthcare proposal, or the stimulus proposal would take, it was to account for about 1/12 of that so far. But there's a lot of other major big league spending projects that have to be examined more closely. And everything from the defense budgets down to all the agency budgets have to be re-examined. And it's not a partisan issue. Spending is not a partisan issue. But responsibility is something that the voters are asking for right now, and they're not really seeing it right now. They're seeing a lot of rhetoric and not a lot of responsibility.
Okay, so obviously the
I have friends who haven't worked in 5 years. I know families who survive on food stamps. We need work. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and one on the way. And they're gonna have jobs when they get older, right here in Pennsylvania.
If Corey O'Brien can bring back trust by instituting a code of ethics his first day as county commissioner and balance the budget without raising taxes or cutting services, he can bring back jobs and hope as congressman.
I'm Corey O'Brien, and I approve this ad.